Welcome to On Texas Football. Hope everybody's having a good Sunday here. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Gerry Hamilton. We're going to talk a little position battles for the 2024 Texas Longhorns. Gerry, good afternoon. Hope everything's going well.
Going great, man. It's finally stopped raining in Houston for a little while.
All right, let's get into it, guys. Position battles that we're going to be watching for this coming week. Texas gets back to practice on the 31st, this coming Wednesday afternoon. Gerry and I will both be there. What are the position battles heading in to 2024? The real ones. There are a couple, Gerry, and I want to hit this one out there to you, like running back, where I think that there's some questions around what are going to happen, or even tight end. These two are perfectly situated, where you have a top two at both of those positions. And it's really more about usage of each of those, whether it's going to be Cedric Baxter and Jaden Blue, and it's a 50-50 split, or is it a 60-40 split, run, pass, etc. Same at tight end with Amari Nyblack and Gunnar Hill. They're definitely the top two at each of those positions. Those aren't true position battles like what we're talking about and want to go over here. So just that people are going to say, well, what about these other spots? We're talking more about, look, is this guy going to unseat this guy? What is the rotation really going to look like? Those sorts of things. And I think that everybody would be in agreement. Let's start with wide receiver because there are a number of candidates coming out of spring, and now they've added one in the summer months in Silas Bolden, wide receiver out of Oregon State. But here are the candidates. Matthew Golden, transfer of University of Houston. Jonte Cook, the leading returning wide receiver from the University of Texas, only had 8 catches a year ago. Isaiah Bond caught the game winner for Alabama in the Iron Bowl last year, had 50-plus catches, I believe, for the Crimson Tide a year ago. Ryan Wingo, very talented freshman out of St. Louis for Texas. DeAndre Moore, a sophomore, redshirt freshman out of the Los Angeles area, caught the big bomb from Arch Manning in the spring game. Those 6, Golden, Cook, Bond, Wingo, Moore, those are the guys that are in here. How are they going to mesh out? How is the rotation going to work out? That is all going to be decided in this fall camp. And I think it could be decided even longer into it. Gerry, if you had to guess right now, I'll try to piece this together. Who is your starting lineup at wide receiver going into, and this is just going into the first day of fall camp. I'm not even talking about what is it going to look like come August 30th, 31st, when Texas plays Colorado State.
Yeah, so I think Isaiah Bond is the easy one. Easy. Like you said, 48, 50 catches, 650 yards, big game experience, playoff team. Entering his third year, a projected first, second round pick, easy one. After that, Jonte Cook would be one. I think, look, he should take a huge step this year from year 1 to year 2. I think he's improved his mental consistency. He's a year into the scheme. I think that one, if Jonte Cook isn't a starter, that means he's underperformed. Bottom line, no other way to put it. The third spot's interesting, either DeAndre Moore or Matthew Golden. I think since Golden missed a little bit of time in the spring and adjusting to the new system, and DeAndre Moore a year into it, I think there's something at play there. I'll go with Matthew Golden, though, by the time you get to Michigan. So I think you're looking at Bond, Cook, and Matthew Golden as your 3 guys. I think Quinn, from what I hear, Quinn and Matthew Golden have a pretty good rapport going to this point in Austin.
That leaves a couple of guys that are different. Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore, and Silas Bolden would be in that second group of rotations, the way we look at it. You and I have both heard Ryan Wingo's name ad nauseum, starting in the spring. Then he had a tremendous spring game, and I'm just telling you, it's the hype surrounding him has continued to build. It hasn't subsided at all. But then you have Silas Bolden, who may be the most polished, the most used or utilized wide receiver of this group, the most experienced, and DeAndre Moore on that second team. Is it possible that one or two of those guys actually enter into the starting rotation by Michigan? I think I agree with you, by the way, on the starting group when they go out there on Wednesday. Like I think it's Golden, Cook, and Bond. I do think, to your point, it could be Moore instead of Bond, instead of Golden. You and I are on the same page. But how is he going to interplay those guys is really the key question, I think. And will Ryan Wingo, I mean, he's the most talented out of all of these guys, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Will Ryan Wingo be ready by Michigan to actually, could he overtake a Matthew Golden? Could he overtake even a Jonte Cook or an Isaiah Bond? I'm not so sure. But
I don't think so by Michigan, Bobby. I think by midseason, we may be talking about a different starting lineup. But I think early in the season, that's what will make this season so interesting is I think the competition early is different than the competition by SEC season. Because Sark isn't going to go into the Michigan game. Look, Silas Bolden is extremely talented. He is going to be a key piece to this team. But here's the thing. On Wednesday, when they walk out onto the practice field, that's the first time that he's practiced as a Texas Longhorn. He was not here during the spring. And that's going to matter because Sark's going to have to trust him with all the pre-snap movement and motions to not get you behind the chains in the big house. So I think that plays into it. I think experience, when I say experience in the system combined with experience on the field is going to matter. And so Bond and Golden have a big leg up on Bolden because he wasn't here for spring practice. I don't care how much you look at the playbook and watch the video and stuff. It's different when you get out there and everything's moving really fast around you. So now, if Wingo, that was what held back Jonte Cook. Not that Jonte Cook would have competed for a starting job last year, but that's what held Jonte Cook back from being more of a piece to the puzzle last year was everything that came with playing in Steve Sarkisian's scheme. What could set Ryan Wingo's ascend him quicker is if he goes way above and beyond the mental part of playing in Steve Sarkisian's scheme. That's the differentiator to me. And that's the same thing with Silas Bolden. So how quickly Bolden picks this up, they're all going to play. And I think Silas Bolden is going to be a big part of this team. I think Ryan Wingo is going to be a big part of this team. But Silas Bolden has never practiced as a Texas Longhorn. And it's different from watching the video and putting it on a board.
Yeah, that's interesting because if I'm looking at it, I think ultimately the end of the season, I think it may be Golden, Wingo, and Cook as starters over Bond. And I know everybody says Isaiah Bond's a first, second round pick. I think it's going to be a combo of athleticism, speed, and know-how that gets those guys. We'll see. It's definitely one to watch. The other big topic, the other big position that I think we need to hit next that makes a lot of sense for us to really kind of go deep dive on is defensive tackle, Jerry. We've talked about it. The incumbents are Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton, right? They are the ones that have been there the longest. They played last year. We're heavily in the rotation behind Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy. Collins has actually shown well. Broughton has been a mixed bag. He makes some splash plays and then gets rooted out on the line of scrimmage very easily at times. Texas goes out and adds 3 guys, 2 of which did not show up for spring ball. Bill Norton and Jermaine Lole out of Arizona and Louisville, respectively. They add that to Tia Savea, who was at Arizona as well. Then you have Jeray Bledsoe, Anthony Bryant, Sadir Mitchell. Then you have some freshmen coming in as well. If Collins and Broughton are the incumbents, and they're going to be first to line up as starters on Wednesday, no doubt in my mind. Okay, who starts by Colorado State in your opinion?
Probably Alfred Collins and Bill Norton, scheme dependent, what they want to do. I think Bill Norton is the best over the ball player with experience Texas has. I think you set up Colorado State for the Michigan game, kind of set your rotation, kind of set what you're thinking a little bit there. I think Jermaine Lole, though, is so interesting because him and Alfred Collins are the two guys with NFL draftable grades. And can you actually play those guys together in the front is the question a lot. I don't know the answer to that. I don't think Jermaine Lole is strictly an off or a three-tech type of guy. I think he's best when he is, but we'll see what Texas does as far as if they're going to play more games up front, what they're going to do. So I think Vernon Broughton, he has his role on the team. I think he's got the toughest job maybe of any player in this program this year on holding off the competition, because he is battling Lole, Savea, Jere Bledsoe in year 3, who pound for pound maybe the most talented athlete in the program, or I say is. So this should be the year, if Jere Bledsoe is going to become something at Texas, this should be the year you really start to see it. And if you start to see it, then the other guy's snaps are going to fall off a little bit because he's that talented of a player. And
the one thing I will add to this, and I agree with you. So let me say that about Jere Bledsoe's athleticism. I think a lot of people that have seen him agree with you as well. The issue is, out of Bledsoe, Savea, Lole, and Broughton, none of those guys are really true nose tackles. Norton is a true nose tackle.
Yep.
Okay. That's why he fits and pairs so well as a starter with Alfred Collins.
The number 2 guy is actually Aaron Bryant.
Right, exactly. And so Aaron Bryant and Sadir Mitchell at nose make a lot of sense, right? They've got a lot of 3 or 5 techniques that are guys that line up outside the guard or on top of the guard, as opposed to the guys that line up and try to anchor in the center. And so I agree with you. Vernon Broughton, he's got some issues right now keeping his gig as it's currently constituted.
Because Bobby, I would say this: Savea is probably better against the run than Broughton is.
Yes,
Lole is going to be better against the. I mean, people forget. I wrote a story for On Texas Football. Jermaine Lole has 141 tackles and 12.5 sacks as a college player. Missed 2 seasons. That is a highly productive guy. Highly productive player. That means he's on the field a lot. That means teams in the past, Arizona State didn't feel like they had to take him off on against the run. He's on the field, period.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes, but it's possible Broughton was going to get leapfrogged anyways by Jere Bledsoe. And so where does this fall from a guy that, a lot of people are saying, hey, this is his year, just like it was Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat after Moro Ojomo and Keandre Coburn the previous year to kind of step up and be the next. We'll see how hard he's worked over the summer. Same with Alfred Collins. I don't want to just point at Vernon here because that would be unfair. But I think of all – look, wide receiver and defensive tackle are very, very similar. Very, very similar. The only difference is we know what Alfred Collins is. We don't know what any of these wide receivers are yet in a Texas uniform, right? Mm-hmm. And we know Alfred Collins is probably good enough to pass the muster. I think Vernon Broughton is a notch below him, okay? So I think that they're very similar situated. Both positions added 3 transfers. How do those guys literally line up? Norton and Savea were teammates. They both played a lot for Arizona and played productively. Lole came in from Louisville after transferring originally from Arizona State. I just think you look at it, Jerry, and I think that to your point, I think it's Collins and Norton as your starters out of the gate. And then from there, you look at whether or not Broughton, however I apologize for the last name pronunciation there, is really the guy. Bledsoe and Savea, as well as Lole, could be your next 3, and Broughton could be as low as 6 or 7 on the depth chart, going from being an incumbent starter. We'll see if that comes to pass.
Yeah, I would say this. Vernon Broughton's interesting this year because he got married, so that comes with a different pressure and mindset. So he's a little different than the rest of those guys. But I'll also say this. Tia Savea, Johnny Nansen started him at edge against Utah last year. Jermaine Lole has done the same thing in the past. I think we try to put these guys in a box. what will they do? Those guys have a little ability to play out where Baron Sorrell does too, which is interesting to me, and add even more size there. So it's going to be fun. So to me, if you want to have that possibility, if you're Johnny Nansen and PK this year, that means Bledsoe had to have come on. Broughton's better anchoring. Aaron Bryant continues to take the next step. And Bill Norton can handle a lot of snaps over the ball. And Alfred Collins has become that NFL guy because there's more versatility on this defensive front than they had a year ago, which is interesting to me.
All right. Going to move on because I do think that's a battle that we're just going to have to watch.
Yeah.
It's just the bottom line. Productivity will be a key. Another one that is more straightforward, I think probably the most straightforward battle in camp for a starting position is Gavin Holmes at cornerback versus Javion Cole at cornerback.
Yep.
We both believe Manny Muhammad has one side of the cornerback room locked down.
No doubt.
Okay. It is Gavin Holmes, a young man that came in from after being a starter at Wake Forest for a year and a half, played behind Ryan Watts as well as Terrence Brooks a year ago. Now he's being asked to possibly start at Texas. You also have the other one is Javion Cole, a 2-year starter at San Jose State, now coming in at Texas, or excuse me, a 1-year starter at San Jose State after being at Cal Poly the year before and starting for them. That is probably the most straightforward, like 1-for-1 battle that we have anywhere. Is that accurate? Because the depth is not huge there. Warren Roberson right now, the 4th cornerback in the room, we think.
No, 100%. I think it is the key position battle for this team heading into August. Because look, they're two totally different players. And that Gavin Holmes, one, you know more what you got with him. From what we've heard, Bobby, he's taken a next step in terms of physicality and sense of urgency, maybe leading from the front. This is his last year at Texas, right? With Javion Cole, him in the workout setting isn't what Texas is actually waiting to see. They're waiting to see him when the pads are on because he is an instinctive playmaker on the ball. And that's not always going to show up in the summer workouts. That's different than being with pads on in the games, in practice settings, scrimmage settings, and that sort of thing. So this is a battle that I know people like to say, well, who's ahead this summer? It doesn't matter to the Texas staff. The Texas staff is waiting until the pads come on because Javion Cole's the gamer. That's where he stands out. He's a gamer. And also when they're mixing more coverages. Is Javion Cole have the better ability to play within all those coverages versus Gavin Holmes, who's going to be a better man guy. So that's what's also interesting about this to see how it plays out. And then I'll add this, Bobby. The 4th corner position is key because injuries happen. Ryan Watts was hurt last year. I mean, somebody else got nicked up at some point in time. So is it Warren Roberson? Does a Santana Wilson make a run at that? Because he's going to have maybe more scheme versatility and have better feel for that. Because Warren Roberson has all the gifts, but they got to trust him in the scheme and coverages. You know, does a Kobe Black now with time? Does Wardell Mack, who were there in the spring, do any of those guys make the run at Warren Roberson? Because the 3rd corner position or the 2nd starting position and their 2nd 2 and 3 corner is very important to the season. But the number 4 guy is going to become very important at some point because injuries are going to happen. It's inevitable.
I think you made a great point. You know, if a team has a elite wide receiver that gets downfield with the best of them, Gavin Holmes is the fastest corner on the team, at least among the older guys on the team at this point. And he has longer arms than Manny Muhammad even. So he may be the guy that matches up there. Whereas if you're playing a more run-oriented team that's not going to necessarily tax you over the top, like, say, a Michigan, Javion Cole may make more sense unless Gavin Holmes has improved his physicality to a level. I do think that's the one spot on the field for sure that is a man-for-man question. Who's going to man up and be the first guy out there at corner opposite Manny Muhammad? All right, a couple other positions that I want to take These are the secondary positions we mentioned, running back and tight end. There's others. Edge with Trey Moore. How does he potentially unseat either Ethan Burke or Barron Sorrell? My issue is he probably doesn't. They're going to come at you in waves and rotations, not unlike what we talked about with defensive tackle. So that's one. The other is safety, Jerry. Andrew Makuba is likely starting. That'll push either Derek Williams or Michael Taft to the sideline as a starter, right? Your thoughts on either of those two positions? Do you think it's truly rotational at defensive end? And what about at safety?
I think it's definitely rotational at edge position early in the season. Again, later in the season with Trey Moore and Colin Simmons, you just got to see if those guys provide a consistent pass rush that nobody else can. That changes the equation for me. I think safety is very interesting though. And by the way, edge, I still think Trey Moore may play some off the ball linebacker in this scheme with Johnny Nansen here added to what PK does as well. They tinkered with that in the spring, so that'll be interesting to see. Safety, look, if Derek Williams makes the big jump year 1, year 2 that really good college players make, then you can't. Steve Sarkisian sat there in the press conference and he could be a first-round pick when he was coming out of high school. I think Makuba and Derek Williams are your starters. I think that is a total different level than what Texas had starting last year. And I think Michael Taft in a reserve role, you bring him in with hopefully you don't rotate 2 for 2 this year, but if you do, you bring him in with a Jelani McDonald who's a younger player, and that helps your younger player. Get him in the right position. The communication is big. Derek Williams doesn't have to have that as much this year. But Jelani McDonald being younger at that position, that can help. Michael Taft can bridge that gap. Or, what if Xavier Filsaime starts to get some time there? We don't know. Jelani McDonald, Filsaime, they're probably going to compete. Jelani McDonald has a head start. But I think Michael Taft in that second group, he can help with that communication. I think in general, if Texas, and I don't know if they're going to rotate like they did last year, but if they rotate like they did last year, that communication's really big with that second group. So I think Derek Williams and Makuba are the starters. I think that's the best duo Texas can put on the field at the same time, because I do think Derek Williams is going to make a big jump year 1 to year 2.
Got it. All right. The other thing I would say here, just looking at it from our position, left guard, Hayden Connor is a 2-year incumbent going up against Nato Umeozulu and Cole Hudson. Both Hudson started an entire year as a true freshman, fresh off of injury this past year. He's apparently healthy again. Nato has made some big strides, we believe. Yet, they haven't unseated Hayden Connor yet, and there's a reason for that, Jerry. Connor apparently really good in pass protection compared to the other two. You see just more of the same, or because you're getting ready to go up against bigger guys in the SEC, do Nato and Cole, who are better run blockers than Hayden Connor, they just are, do they kind of push him more in a different way that he wasn't pushed in the Big 12 now that they're going into the SEC?
I think if you see more of a real rotation early in the season, there's real competition. So I'm not talking Neto gets in the middle of the third quarter against Colorado State or Cole Hudson. If you start to see more of a rotation early, there's real competition, because I don't think it's out of the equation. Look, that you could have a little bit of rotation there in the red zone when you want to run the football. I don't think that's out of the question. You don't make wholesale changes like that normally on an offensive line or positionally, but I'm not going to necessarily rule that out this year. But I think the thing I'm looking for is if there's a real rotation. I think they're going to rotate more guys, but if it's a more of a real rotation early in the season, Colorado State game, you'll know there's a serious competition headed into game 2 and really beyond the SEC schedule.
One other position. I want you to take another position that you think could be a battle that other people aren't necessarily talking about enough. I'll end with one, but I want you to go first. A position right now, Jerry, that you think is more competitive than maybe people are talking
about. That's a really good question. Maybe inside linebacker, depending on what they do with Anthony Hill. Is Leon LaFau ready to make a move this year in year 2 at Texas? Because I think instinctively, floated a football, ability to play in coverage, I think he's a really good football player.
And so, in your opinion, that would mean LaFau playing inside linebacker and Anthony Hill staying on the field as an outside linebacker. Is that what you're getting at, as opposed to staying with David Binda, who entered the spring as the starter?
So it may just be LaFau competing with Binda, period, in a way, because you can move the chess pieces around. But is Leon LaFau ready to make the big? If these guys, year 1 to year 2, this is the biggest jump these guys make. If he makes the big jump year 1 to year 2, that presents a good problem for the Texas defensive staff.
I'm going to go with a different one. And this would be a big surprise to each and everybody on the team, I think, and fans alike. Jalen Gilbo and Jahdae Barron. I'm telling you now, I really believe Jalen Gilbo has a chance to unseat Jahdae Barron at nickel. I don't know why, whether it's Barron's continued issues with his feet, etc. But there's just so much positive conversation about Jalen Gilbo, Sark is talking about it.
Yeah.
As well as behind the scenes. And I know it would be weird to think about it, but just watch. Let's see if Jalen Gilbo steals more time from Jahdae Barron or whoever at nickel this season. I just got a little sneaky suspicion. I'm not saying it's happening, but it is the one that I'm circling, and it sounds, to almost say it sounds like sacrilege, because Jahdae Barron's got 2 years starting experience, but you just don't hear these kind of things that I'm hearing behind the scenes on Jalen Gilbo without there being some idea that he might have a chance to do something a little special.
I got one more, Bobby. Does Trey Wisner small percentage cut into the snaps of Baxter and Blue? Yeah. Small percentage.
I think he's going to be like, I think I have in my head, Jerry, I have an idea that he's the Keelan Robinson replacement this year.
I think he's going to play more, though. That's my initial opinion, and it may be cut into Jaden Blue's carries a little bit. I think Trey Wisner may be a better runner than Jaden Blue. Jaden Blue is a versatile weapon. I just wonder if Trey Wisner, if they play more 21 personnel, if he has the opportunity to cut into the carries slightly of Baxter and Blue.
Well, if he's productive, Steve Sarkisian will get him on the field. That's a reality. He made sure that Keelan Robinson got his couple of touches a game because he could break it open. If he starts eating into Jaden Blue and Cedric Baxter.
But you agree Wisner's a better runner than Keelan Robinson.
No, he is. He's wigglier and got better balance.
Bigger. Yes. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. All right. That's going to do it for position battles for this episode of On Texas Football. I think we went over just about every aspect that we wanted to. Wide receiver, defensive tackle, the two big ones, I think, by far. Then you have cornerback and safety that are in there. And then another one-on-one or one-on-two version at left guard as well that we talked about. All right, that's going to do it for Gerry Hamilton and myself for this episode of On Texas Football. Hope you guys are having a good weekend. We'll talk to you again tonight on the live stream at 7 o'clock. Hook 'em.